Good morning. Welcome to the Wednesday, August 17th, 2022 Acquisition, Disposition, and Construction Committee meeting, public meeting of the Kingston City Land Bank. We do ask that members of the public limit their comments during the public comments period to no more than 2 minutes. Thank you, and I turn the floor over to Bob Dennison, the chair of the committee.
Well, welcome to our exciting meeting. So we're gonna jump right into Scott telling us where he's at. And my understanding is that our license agreement has expired. And so what we're looking for is kind of an update where you are and what do we do next and how do we keep this alive? So Scott, it's on you.
Great, thank you. And thank you for this opportunity. I'm really excited with what we've achieved so far with the house in terms of plans. So in late April, early May, I hired John Powell Architecture to complete plans for the house, which took a little time, but we're there now. We have the construction documents all set. We did asbestos testing and found asbestos in a couple areas of the house, and we completed a land survey. So that all wrapped up late June, early July. And since then, I've been working on getting bids from prospective contractors, which has been a bit of a slow process as well. But I've made some headway in the past week. I anticipate getting 4 bids by the end of the month. And after that, I think there will be a little bit of negotiation and back and forth and maybe some redesign as well. But budget-wise, I've already spent about $17,000 for the plans and the testing and survey. And I think I'll be able to stick pretty close to the original budget that I proposed in the application. So it's moving along. It's obviously slower than I anticipated and the timeline that I provided in the application. But there's progress being made.
So when do you anticipate being ready for a construction loan for, in essence, where we can get out, so to speak?
I think, selecting the contractor and any redesign could take a month. So then as soon as that's done and a contractor is selected, I can go to Ulster Savings that pre-approved me for the financing, and they have a list of things that I have to resubmit. The closing process should take about 60 days. So I'm thinking, within 3 months, contractors hired, plans are finalized, and loan is, the financing's closed.
So in essence, if we were to give you a 90-day license, that would do it.
I think so.
Okay.
The only if is, just in getting contractors to come back to me.
Yeah, I would propose providing a little more gap there, just knowing how these things go, the 90 days. But when it sounds like you're making great progress, these things just move very slowly.
So Mike, can we do 90 with a possible extension, or should we do 120?
It sounds like you're leaning towards 120 being a conservative, first. It's just 120 sounds like it would work for Scott. I think it would keep us within our goals for disposition. Hopefully by the end of the year, there might be a nuance where Scott requires us, or the lender requires us to give a purchase and sale agreement unexecuted. So we'll be keeping everyone in the loop as this progresses, as I think I have every month. So you would be in the loop on it, but I would recommend 120 days if that works for Scott.
Would that work for you, Scott? That would work. So we'd go to the board with that?
To the end of the year. Yeah, I think that will definitely work.
Okay. So we want to bring to the board Monday a proposal to extend a license agreement to Scott for 120 days for the sale of Hamilton. Is that correct?
Is it 120 days from when? So when did the last agreement
a few days ago, right?
expire?
It expired on the 15th. I think it would just be 120 days from when we enter into it.
Okay,
So
great.
it's a few days more.
2 days ago. Yeah, okay. Good. Does that sound good to everybody?
That sounds great.
Aaron, yes. Daniel, I can't see you if you're nodding.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
Sounds
Sounds
great.
good to me.
All right. So we will bring that to the board on Monday and see if we can get that executed and done and approved by the board. And then Mike gets to execute it with Scott, and Scott gets to finish the house, or at least start the house.
The house.
Yeah.
Yeah, the construction timeline that I'm getting from everyone, once it starts, which everyone has a queue, I've heard 3 months to 8 months. So I think that once the work starts, it will be completed in a year.
If I could offer a suggestion on that, order your windows first. Windows are such a long lead time. We're bumping into that with our construction schedules as well. It's 3 months, 3 to 4 months if it weren't for the windows, and then it pushes out to 6 to 8 just with the delivery.
I've heard that too. Yeah. Yeah. But I think that I'll have, I think there will be time before any work starts, just because everyone's really busy.
Which is a good thing, kind of.
Yeah.
Great. All right, good deal. So not to take up any of more of your time, Scott, we appreciate your stopping in.
Thank
And,
you. Thanks
I
for
mean, you
all the
certainly-
work that you guys do. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome to stay, but I wouldn't if I were you. How's that?
Okay. Yeah. I'll peace out. Thank you.
Of course, I'm
Thanks,
very
Scott.
excited for you to buy this house.
Oh, thanks.
All right, good. So we'll write that up and we'll make a resolution
Yes.
Monday. What else did I have on my list? I have a list that's great. City disposition plan update. The only one who doesn't know where we are is Aaron.
He's on the
And
loop.
where we are is another month.
Yeah, no, I'm on the email chain, and I actually watched the video that Mike circulated. So I'm very aware we're on another month, and I'm not going to the committee meeting tonight. So we'll see what happens next month.
Okay.
Um,
I'm meeting.
go ahead.
I'm going to meet with Kristen Wilson when she gets back from vacation at her request. To talk
Oh,
about,
that's great.
yeah, to talk about what the hell is going on.
That's great because they were definitely not happy.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about that. Kristen is an interesting character, and we'll talk about why they're unhappy. But just so you know, she's away for 2 weeks, so that won't happen till after that. Good. Hamilton, we're on to Downs was the next thing on my Downs. We're talking about an RFP. No, we're talking about selling it in the fall. And we've talked to a realtor or two. We have some numbers. I expect we could just give it to a realtor to sell, couldn't we?
Yes, and this reminds me of a request, I think, from Daniel to do an RFP for brokers. So it is on my list to do
Okay.
that, so we can select. I don't know if we have to, but it might yield a better, more diverse set of options if we did.
Doesn't hurt if we get responses. I mean, brokers are busy like contractors, but it doesn't hurt to do. I mean, it shouldn't be extensive. I'm sure they're used to this kind of thing.
Yep.
I think it's a good idea. Let's do that. Do we need board action to do that? Should we bring that to the board?
I think you should, just to get it so it's passed, so everyone's on the same page. We have a bunch of actions coming up that the board can vote on at the next meeting. I think just getting it out of the way to say we're doing an RFP for a broker.
Yep, doesn't hurt to
Be
do it.
helpful.
And it's very safe. Which brings me to my next item, which is Henry Street. We're going to do an RFP for Henry Street again, and this one will have a desire for it to be a community use of the building. We need to talk about that, though. I'm worried about the museum across the street coming back and saying we're a community use and we want to do this too. We have someone who's interested in it to make it into a daycare center, which is a great idea because the community wants that. And the question is, how specific can we be in our RFP? Can we ask for a daycare center, or is that too sketchy? We probably ought to ask Brian.
I've seen many RFPs. I've seen many RFPs that are very prescriptive in what is asked for. They're municipal RFPs, but of course we would run it through Brian.
When I think about it, I think we should have a prescriptive, say we want it to be a daycare center. We want to see proposals to make this into a daycare center. And if we only get one respondent,
Personally,
which is possible, that would be good.
so I think that looks extremely weird, given that that's what Novo is planning to propose. So honestly, I think it's worse than just selling it to them without this. I mean, personally, I don't really agree that we need to RFP this again, but happy to be wrong about that. But I think it's extremely weird for a housing organization to put out an RFP requesting that a house get turned into something that's not housing.
Could we
That
sell it to them just
happens to
directly without
perfectly
the
aligned.
RFP?
We could, made Brian very nervous.
And
Made Brian nervous. Gotcha.
And only because he says.
I
it's
mean, Bob,
conflict.
to your point, like, let's recall that Transart offered $1, I think,
Right,
last time.
right.
And I don't remember what, if any, actual
Transart.
proposal they had other than we are Transart. So
Right.
Transart offered
I don't know.
$0. They said that they needed 1 point. Actually, we probably shouldn't discuss respondents on a public meeting.
It was not a successful proposal. It didn't meet our
No.
criteria at all. Now, we could sell it. Brian said we could sell it, but he says it makes him nervous to sell it to Novo.
Would we be selling it to Nova, or would we be selling it to another organization in Kingston that serves as the pass through? I mean, I know that's it's a maybe a differentiation without a without a distinction, but in the same way that Novo gives to so many organizations in Kingston, I'm just curious. Do we know?
I believe that the Nova Foundation would be purchasing it directly or
Oh,
be
okay.
responding directly with more detail in their proposal about what they're doing.
Yeah.
What if they just made a proposal to us?
That was in the context of exploring the private sale, but I think the hesitancy that Brian had in recommending that course of action had to do with the perception of a conflict, given that Novo is a major funder of ours, and if he recommended private sales only be used as a last resort, if we have something that we've taken out to RFP and we've tried JV partnerships and we've tried developing it ourselves, affordable housing, or considered that, then maybe it could be a private sale. I think the example was a contiguous lot that's unbuildable for a neighbor to purchase and use, or a community garden.
Okay, so here's the risk assessment. So this is a risk assessment. The question is, what's the risk of getting a proposal from Novo to do this into a daycare center, which is something that the community has asked for and wants to have happen, versus what's the risk of doing that? I mean, the sale could be challenged if we were to go in that direction, if there was someone who wanted to spend the money to challenge the sale. What's the risk? I mean, is it going to happen? Is it a reasonable risk to take to sell it to Novo based on a proposal that they make for a daycare center? Or is that too much of a risk for us?
I kind of feel like it's almost the less, for me, at least, like on its face, either doing an open, just community good RFP or selling it directly to Novo without an RFP seem like the two options that are most, least, I don't know if sketchy is the right word, but like they offer, there's a certain amount of, creating an RFP that's specifically designed for Novo just strikes me as something that if I were on the board and I didn't understand the context, I would look askance at, kind of thing.
Mhm.
I agree with that as well. I think just creating it off the premise of a community need and having whomever do the RFP is like less of the liability. Obviously, they're skilled enough to come back with a quality RFP, right? So it most likely will lend itself to them, but it's not that we're catering to them with the RFP, and then making sure that it's something for community needs. Like that's argument enough when you're worried about liability. It's like we're doing, as an organization, we're doing the thing that the community is seeking.
Well, let me back up for a second. And here's a possible way to pathway for us to go. How do we know that there's a community desire for this? Somebody had a meeting kind of somewhere that I don't know anything about. And I heard back from people that this is what we wanted. What if we had a formal public meeting, I'm not going to say public hearing, but that's what it would be, to say, we have this building, we're the land bank, we have this building, we've heard, anecdotally that there's a public need, that there's a need here for a daycare center. What does the public say? And if the
I couldn't
public,
agree with you more, Bob. That
And
was
this-
amazing. Sorry.
Yeah,
I got
and
excited.
this could be, run by the communications committee. And if the public comes out and says, we want a daycare center, we could say, we've listened to the public, we've documented it. That's what we're going to do. Go ahead, Mike.
I would offer a counterpoint to the public survey approach. What if we conduct a public survey at a public forum and the consensus is to build a restaurant?
A restaurant.
To build
That's not
a what?
public- That's not a public service.
To build.
Well,
to
but I
build
think
a
Mike
community
is
garden.
right. And the problem,
Sorry.
I think, is that, right, it's like you gather this input and then what do you do with it? So we've made this mistake in the past. I don't want to make it again. That was, what do you think should happen to this house? Do you like affordable housing? And everybody around them says, nope. And then of course we go ahead and build affordable housing because that's what we do. So I think, first of all, there's no solution that will please everybody. So some people will think it should be a house. Some people will think it should be a daycare. Some people will think it should be God knows what else. But the reality is that there's only a very limited number of proposals, potentially only one, on the table. So I think it's very unlikely that people will say, what we really want is for Novo to own another building in our neighborhood. They're questionably popular. I think it's a little bit of a dangerous approach.
Also, people might not want a daycare center next to them.
But I think the most important
right.
thing is
I wouldn't.
asking the question in the community, considering the scrutiny has been that the community doesn't have a voice, right? So making sure that you ask the community to do a poll, and now also making sure that you educate the community on how a process is, how you come to the conclusion of what you're going to do, right? Okay, we got these 3 different suggestions from you guys. This is what it's going to cost to actually do this. These are the RFPs we got. This is why this one thing can't happen and why we've chosen to do this. At least it's like kind of when a kid asks to do something and you say no, and then you say, because I said so, right? People just want to feel informed. You're never going to make anyone happy, everyone happy, like you said, Daniel. It's unfortunate. And it's also how an organization has to run in order to be successful. They have to make decisions that also have the interest of the organization and not just the community, but asking the community for its voice is really important, because then we're just another not-for-profit that's doing whatever they want to do in their minds,
Well, and what if we do it instead of a public hearing where you can have to have people, what if we did a paper survey or an electronic survey of the neighborhood? What do you want to do with this building? We've looked at housing, we've heard proposals from others. What does the community think we should do with this building?
I guess I would ask, do we want to sell the building to Novo? Because
Yes.
I guess, because I think then that seems to be kind of what we're working around a little bit here. I fully agree that it's great to have more public input of many kinds of many different kinds and varieties of feedback to different methods and forms, and whether it's paper or forums or online stuff. But I guess I wonder why we would do that in a context when we have one bidder that we already know is going to bid, and that's kind of what we're trying to like work around. I don't know. It strikes me as why wouldn't we do that with a building where we really don't know what we're going to do with it? We're not sure it can be affordable housing. We don't have a good proposal. Let's have a larger process where we bring in neighbors and local businesses and other ones to talk about what they want this building to be, as opposed to this particular building where we have a specific proposal and we know that that's the proposal. At least maybe we don't know, but like we're talking about this as if we know that's the proposal we want, and we're trying not to make it sound like that's the proposal we want.
We're trying to protect ourselves from somebody who's challenging it.
Of course, but like, couldn't we just do the initial, like, couldn't we just do one of the initial things we talked about, which is either sell it directly or do an open community RFP, and we'll get this one RFP, and like that would meet all the legal thresholds. So, which is why I come back to the question of like, is selling this to Novo something we want to do?
Well, I think we want to sell the building. Like, I'm not in any way married to Novo buying the building. What I am married to is us selling the building to the best proposer, which, because we've done a round of this already, I think we're sort of probably safely operating under the assumption that the best proposal for both the land bank and the community is going to be from them.
Then my vote, I mean, Novo didn't propose last time, right? So like my vote would be to open it up again, kind of open it up again for proposals that are community based, and Transart might propose again, and that's fine. Maybe they'll have a much more flushed out proposal this time.
What they need is money that they wish they don't have.
Yes.
One of the proposers was not happy that he didn't get the building. The guy with the cannabis, construction material.
Hempcrete, Bob, Hempcrete.
Oh, sorry. And the other proposal, the woman from Saugerties, who I think has got huge potential for as a developer, just didn't have the financial depth to do it. The numbers didn't work for her. We don't want to lead them on again. That's my fear with a proposal. We don't want to say that the hemp guy or I don't think the woman would propose again. I think she's looking for a smaller building that can financially work for her better. I mean, she's a flipper, but I think shares our values. And then there's the other guy that works in the bank, who was his proposal to live in it and to have a rental, despite the fact that he didn't have the depth to do it, was not a crazy proposal. So if we open that door again, what do we say to these people?
Well, if our proposals, sorry.
No, go ahead.
All I was going to say is if our proposal specifies a preference for community good, as opposed to the other three pathways, that might change the respondent's appetite, the prior respondent's appetite of resubmitting similar proposal. Who knows? We may get a better proposal, but if we're specific in that preference, it might help people to not feel like we're wasting their time. We're genuinely asking for open-ended community pathway form.
So let me see where we are right now. So Daniel, you're sell it right away. Just sell it to Novo. Is that where you are?
Where I am is, if the consensus of the group is that we must do another RFP, that's fine. I disagree. That's also fine. And I think if we do go that route, I think it's not as though I disagree that like gathering input from the community is a good thing. I just fundamentally don't understand like what you do with it when the community verdict is not an option that's on the table. So yeah, I think if we're gonna do an RFP, I think we should keep it focused on community good. I think we should have a minimum bid amount. Last time we said bid whatever. Here's our suggested list price. Yeah, I think the bigger point being, like, if we are going an RFP route, we should do it for real and not as a way to get around a weird optics thing of selling a building to Novo. But I feel like that optics thing will exist no matter what. And we have all, like, the concerns that Brian has about us not doing a competitive procedure sounds like this is exactly that scenario. We've already put it up to RFP. We already have, decided that we're not going to develop it. We've already, like, I'm not sure how it doesn't qualify under Brian's concerns.
I think
He does realize we've RFP'd it already, right?
Yes.
he does realize that we've RFP'd it. I think the fact that we did not receive a response from Novo and then in a private sale would be selling it to an initial non-respondent who funds this organization seems to be giving the perception of a conflict if someone were just to look at it on the face of it.
But, bear in mind, the
But
conflict.
is it any better if we just sell it, if we do an RFP and we get 4 different proposers and then we still decide to sell it to Novo? Honestly, to me, that seems worse because we're turning down people again. Whereas in this
They're
case,
better
like, we've
proposals.
already done that thing.
Well, bear in
Right,
mind,
but that's subjective, like,
bear in mind, Novo's proposal, Novo's present proposal is for $275,000. The biggest proposal we got from the when we did the RFP was like 100 or 150, something like that. So this is significantly more money, and therefore a significantly better proposal right off the top. One of the things that I'm nervous about, and this is probably a conversation for the communications committee later today, is how do we know? We know that they want to do this and we know that they want to build a daycare center. How do we know the community wants that? We know Novo thinks the community wants
well,
that. How do we know?
I think we don't. And I think the bigger point is the community does not speak with one voice. So,
Well, right, they never do, right.
I'm sure there are members of the community who want that. I'm sure there are other members who do not want that. If this were next door to my house, I definitely would not want that.
What do you hate? What do you hate, kids?
Kinda. Don't have any.
Um,
I don't
no,
hate kids. I have kids that live next door. There's only about 5 of them and they scream constantly.
That's what
Imagine
kids
50.
They're having
I
fun.
know, it's
Bob.
so irritating.
I hate having kids having fun. I hate that.
No, keep it down.
Let me back up for a second. Where was I going to go with that? You're right. They're not going to speak. The community may not speak with one voice. One of our mission statements is to get houses back on the tax roll, get buildings back on the tax roll. That's part of our deal. And right now, this thing is laying there for another 6 months, doing nothing. So, getting it back on the tax rolls is also part of our mission. Affordable housing is part of our mission as well. I don't know. Now I'm undecided. I could be in the camp of just sell it to Novo and run the risk.
Could I recommend that maybe if it's undecided at this committee, that the committee at least decide to bring it to the board for a discussion that could fall under executive session if it's potentially going to affect the value of the property? Unless,
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. What's the downside? Tell me the downside to that idea.
That makes sense to me.
Wait, Mike, can you say that one more time?
if the committee were to make a recommendation, like the committee's not deciding this, it would be making recommendations to the board to vote on doing something. The committee cannot reach a total absolute consensus. Maybe it could go to the board. The recommendation out of committee would be discussion. at the board about this, and possibly under executive session, because although this is a public meeting, I would argue that discussions around some of these specifics could potentially affect the value of the property, and that would fall under executive session.
That makes sense to me.
I don't know if it needs to be executive session, but it makes sense to me to bring it to the board. Let's think
Okay.
about executive session or not.
Could I, I'm sorry, Bob, it's your meeting.
No, it's all right. No, it's, yeah, that's where I am, but I could do it either way. Okay. What else do we have? That was exciting. What else do we have?
Could we talk about Greenkill? And
Yes.
I could give some updates on that and then ask the committee to consider moving an action to the board for the board meeting. I'm
Yep.
happy to report that we have two prospective purchasers who meet the requirements of our program and can obtain mortgage financing to purchase the property. My recommendation for the committee to consider would be moving this process to a public lottery to be held at our next board meeting in public, both public and over Zoom. That would be my recommendation
At the next board meeting or at this board meeting?
at the board meeting on Monday. Sorry.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, that sounds great. Did we ever resolve the issue of kind of how we would do the lottery?
We're gonna get a hard hat and somebody's gonna pull a ticket out. Daniel's volunteered. We're gonna blindfold him like with pin the tail on the donkey, turn him around 3 times and see if he can find the hard hat.
I have to take 3 shots of tequila. It's going to be a whole thing.
Right.
And the things that are pulled out of a hat will be pieces of paper with identifiable case numbers for the individuals, but not identifying information. So the case number will be announced. And I would recommend that we show both pieces of paper, that there were 2 numbers, the camera, and that's the way I've been advised to advise the lottery be done.
And Daniel will
Sounds
read
good.
them out like, he'll read them out like Yolanda Vega.
I'm too young, Bob. I'm too young.
She
You're gonna do
retired.
great, Daniel.
This could be an opportunity. She retired, they're probably looking for a new Yolanda Vega.
You're trying to push me out.
Could I recommend?
No.
It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. Could I recommend for the next, and what I think is the final agenda item, that you consider voting to go into executive session, given the sensitivity of it? Erica, you're staying. I'm not asking to exclude anyone, just that we don't record it.
Yep.
Okay.
So we need a
Okay.
All right, well, that was exciting. Is there any additional business that we want to talk about, or shall we entertain a motion to adjourn?
Entertaining it.
Okay, hearing none and entertaining a motion to adjourn by Aaron to adjourn. I don't know, do we have to vote on it? We don't have to vote on it. We could just be adjourned. Unless there's an objection. Daniel won't object, I know.
I won't object.
Okay, good, we're good.
Adjourned.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you
Thanks,
so much.
everyone.
Catch you later.
Take care.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye.